Hi, and welcome to Digital Spy's spoiler-filled discussion of Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm Ian.
And I'm Morgan.
And we're about to channel Tom Holland and Mark Ruffalo and reveal all of the movie's big reveals and twists. If you like what you see, don't forget to give us a like on the video and subscribe to our channel below for more about video content. Seriously, if you haven't seen the film, swing away now and watch our Far From Home spoiler-free review right now instead.
Stop watching because there's some serious spoilers about to come up.
So first things first, it feels the only place we can start with is Mysterio, who we can actually talk about now and why we loved Jake Gyllenhaal so much in the role. Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, huge twist for any comics fans, but Mysterio is actually the villain in this movie.
Shocker.
Yeah,
Who saw it?
It's a slightly odd spoiler in the fact that it is kind of inherent in the character, but I guess anyone coming to this movie totally fresh might not know that about the character.
Yeah.
But I thought Gyllenhaal actually struck a really strong balance in the early part of the movie. Even though, like, as a comics reader, I knew that Mysterio was almost certainly, bar some major reinvention of the character, was going to be the villain. There was going to be a twist. I thought he sold that whole, being Spider-Man's mentor.
Like Big Brother type role.
Yeah. Channeling a little bit of Robert Downey Jr. as well, especially when he puts on the Edith glasses, and the whole point is like he's kind of framed. He looks like Tony Stark. I thought the film sold that really well. I thought Gyllenhaal sold it really well.
I think when the twist actually happens, like I think it's so well staged, and you just see this little click in Gyllenhaal, and he becomes this starts to really chew on the words and stuff. And it's fantastic to watch.
I was a little concerned because I loved his performance in the sort of early part of the movie where he's kind of playing it straight and heroic, and then the big reveal scene for me, he went a bit too big. Like you say, he was chewing the scenery, but I felt like once that we got past that, he struck a really kind of fun comic balance between being both threatening but also quite humorous with it as well.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
And I think even though, comic fans, as soon as Mysterio was announced in this film, they pretty much knew what was going to happen. I think they deal with it in a really smart way, in that he's not a visual effects supervisor or whatever working on these things. He is actually using Tony Stark's bath technology to create these illusions of these massive elementals, along with some weaponized drones. And that fun reveal scene where it shows the guy from Iron Man who Obadiah Stone was having a real go at because he couldn't create an Iron Man suit, just works really well. It's like, as you mentioned after the film, it's the legacy of Tony Stark in two different ways. It's really smart.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave!
I thought it was really neat the way this film dealt with Tony Stark's legacy. Not because obviously that's reflected through Peter Parker feeling the weight of his legacy, and that he has to be the new Iron Man, but also the fact that all the villains of this movie, Mysterio and his cronies, they're all kind of like Stark Industries rejects. And I thought that was really smart. How the whole of the film is really about Tony Stark's legacy. It runs through a seam, like a seam through this movie.
Yeah, and I feel it now makes sense because originally everyone thought this was going to be the first movie of Phase 4, but then it got repositioned as no, actually it's the end of Phase 3, and that now makes sense because it is the sort of epilogue to Tony Stark's journey throughout the whole MCU.
Yeah, definitely. It feels far better positioned as the end of Phase 3 than it doesn't really. This film, it doesn't really set up actually an awful lot in terms of the future of the MCU, but it does tie off a lot of loose ends that were still hanging after Endgame.
Yeah. And this whole elemental illusion thing is what lends the action scene such an inventive, different feel. There's a little bit of Doctor Strange in the earlier Mysterio scenes, of using all the spells and stuff. But as soon as you realise he's just manipulating it through other different things, it gets super inventive and super trippy and weird.
Yeah, like you said, we've not seen a huge amount of that in the MCU. Doctor Strange is probably the closest equivalent. But once Mysterio is unmasked or sort of unfishbowled as the villain of the movie, some of the visual sequences are fantastic and really trippy. Yeah, again, not quite like anything we've seen in a Marvel movie before.
No, because you're constantly questioning, even you're questioning yourself, did that actually happen? Nick Fury gets shot at one point.
Yeah.
It's have they actually gone there? And it's you genuinely feel they might have done at some point.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of a fake ending, which is brilliant.
And they play on it in the fact that, just when you think you're sort of getting smart and getting ahead of them and going, oh, that's an illusion, then something will turn out to not be an illusion. So they play with it really cleverly.
I think, with the film itself, considering they probably had to go there with this spirit, I don't think they could have done the scroll reveal from Captain Marvel here and turn him into a full-on good guy. They had to go there, and I feel they found a fresh, exciting way, even for comic fans, to deal with this Mysterio character on screen.
Agreed.
This is Mr. Beck.
We could have used someone like you on my world.
Your world?
Beck is from Earth, just not ours. The snap tore a hole in our dimension.
You're saying there's a multiverse?
We have a job to do.
connected to the whole Mysterio reveal, because when we first he's introduced in the film as Quentin Beck, he says he's from Earth 833, and this is Earth 616, which, as all comic fans will know, that's what the Marvel Comics universe is set in. So it creates this multiverse potential that everyone thought the MCU was going to introduce after Endgame and then multiple timelines. So because he's now an illusion, how do you feel this sets up? Does the multiverse exist in the MCU now?
Well, I was expecting that the film would have Beck claim to be from another universe, and then it would be revealed, oh no, he's lying. But then actually, like in a post-credit scene, the multiverse is real. No such scene. So it does appear that the multiverse really is just an invention of Beck's. And so in a way, I feel like this movie kind of rules out the whole multiverse for the MCU. Certainly you can't do it in a kind of comics accurate way with Earth 616, because that would suggest that he just guessed and got lucky, and then turns out that is actually the case. I think, ruling it out is a really interesting way to go, because in terms of progressing the MCU and expanding it, the multiverse does seem to be a natural way to go.
Yeah, especially when everyone's obsessed now with the X-Men and Fantastic Four joining it, and it just feels like if you create this other universe where, oh yeah, there's mutants actually, and then they just come over, it feels like a normal way. But if they bring the multiverse in a future film in Phase 4, because we don't really know anything about Phase 4 at the moment, it will seem odd. They will have to retcon some way, or have already planned how Mysterio somehow happened to know, or Quentin Beck really, because Mysterio is a creation.
And also, like, the multiverse would have allowed them in future to possibly reintroduce characters like Captain America and Iron Man in different versions, different parallel worlds. But I guess they've decided not to go down that route.
You mentioned Captain America there, and this film seems to do something pretty significant with Old Man Cap from Endgame.
Well, we weren't sure about this, no. So the opening, the very opening of the film, set to Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You," it is a high school tribute to the fallen heroes who we lost in Avengers Endgame. So you've got Black Widow in there, and of course Tony Stark.
And Vision's in there as
and
well.
Vision, but also Captain America. Which is interesting because, of course, he doesn't end Endgame dead. He survives the movie. He's Old Man Cap.
He's very old.
Very old.
We don't know where he went back to in time, so we don't necessarily know how old or if anything's.
And if his
super serums changed him.
Right. If the super soldier serum slows his aging, he could be like 200 years old. Having said that, he ends the movie still alive, just very, very old. But he's included in a tribute of fallen heroes. So has Spider-Man Far From Home killed off Captain America?
Off screen.
Off screen? Are we to assume that he died between the events of Endgame and the events of Far From Home? Or is it that because he's now old and retired, everyone in the public eye just assumed that Captain America died in the battle against Thanos? I don't know. I feel like fans will be debating that.
Yeah, because at the end of Endgame, the only people who know he comes back as Old Man Cap is Falcon and Winter Soldier. So.
And even if that news spread to the wider Avengers team, it's possible that the general public doesn't know that Captain America survived.
No, especially not some high school reporters. Bet he's not the greatest. Let's be honest.
No.
Talking about people knowing stuff about superheroes, this film was heavily implied during some of the trailers and TV spots that Zendaya's MJ would finally learn the truth about Peter Parker, because let's be honest, you can't just keep going missing on these trips and then somehow Spider-Man swings in.
And this film really stretches credibility in how far Peter Parker is able to get away with concealing his identity. The whole sequence on the bus with the drone. He literally goes, "Look over there," does some Spidey stuff and fools everyone.
Jumps out the window, comes back down. So at least it pushes it, and there is the big reveal where Peter Parker turns around and is like, "I am Spider-Man," and I've messed up, because by that point he knows what Mysterio is doing. Do you feel that the reveal works in the film, or has it, because you sort of know it's coming, it's robbed it a little bit?
I do feel like it was a strange decision to blow that moment in the sort of promotional material in the trailers and TV spots. I feel like it would have been a stronger moment if we hadn't known that. Having said that, maybe it's all done on purpose, because that reveal is later kind of blown out the water by an even larger identity reveal in the first post-credit scene. So maybe that was all part of the plan.
First post-credit scene takes place after they've defeated Mysterio, and Peter Parker thinks he's free and fine, and because MJ now knows about Spider-Man, he takes her on a swing through New York City, which she really doesn't like. Not like, which is fair. I think that's what
looks
all of us
terrifying.
will be feeling. Yeah, I don't think it's thrilling in any way, shape or form. And then there comes this news report where there's last minute, sort of a death confession from Mysterio.
Yeah. And in that, he basically well, first of all, he frames Peter Parker,
Yeah.
edits the footage to make it look as though Peter Parker's responsible for all these deaths. So
all the destruction, all the drones.
all the destruction, all the drones, basically everything Mysterio got up to. Spider-Man's now taking the blame for that. So Spider-Man is now a wanted criminal. So that would be enough to set up.
That's a great. That's like, oh, Spider-Man 3 done. Like,
Yeah.
everyone knows that. But then there comes the absolute fan-pleasing moment that me and you just both looked at each other and just grinned maniacally.
It's my favourite moment in the entire movie.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's revealed that the news report cuts to the dailybugle.net and we see J. Jonah Jameson, played by none other than...
J.K. Simmons, he's back!
Yes! It's just such a brilliant thing that you can't think there's anyone else who could play him, potentially.
If they're really important clients, they can't wait.
They're about to.
Well, this is the thing, like, in as much as, yes, it is a sort of fan-pleasing moment in that it's a nod to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, I think it maybe also goes slightly deeper than that in that when they would talk about reintroducing Jonah Jameson into these new Spider-Man movies, into the MCU movies, I was like, yeah, but you can't really top J.K. Simmons' performance from the Raimi movies. He's just so perfectly cast.
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest pieces of comic book casting of all time. So I was like, well, who could you get that would match that? And I think they probably thought the same. It was like, do you know what? We can't. Let's just get J.K. Simmons back.
Who cares? No one's gonna question it. It's fine.
Right. And I also think reinventing Jameson as this kind of like
Fake news
shock jock
Yeah.
is actually a really
So
smart
good.
way to go with the character and sort of modernise him as well.
Yeah, and he gets the final bit of footage from Mysterio where it's sort of teased that Mysterio's going to be like Spider-Man is, and then it cuts off and you think, oh, they're not going to go there, but then they go there and Mysterio reveals that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and that is the end of probably one of the best MCU post-credit scenes, you feel?
It's definitely like
Yeah.
top 3 for me.
Yeah.
And not just in terms of like, you got that fan-pleasing element with J.K. Simmons' return, but then it also like blows the original ending of the movie out of the water and like sets up like a really potentially interesting Spider-Man 3.
So we ruled out the multiverse earlier because of the whole Mysterio reveal, but do you feel this J.K. Simmons appearance now means that potentially in the future we could get like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man coming into the universe?
Where do all these guys come from?
Let's be honest, it probably is just a cute, fun Easter egg for fans to go,
Crushing our dreams, always.
to be like, oh, it's J.K. Simmons, he was in those old movies. Yeah. Having said that, I think there's a lot of fun speculation that almost certainly will be had by fans, in that if J.K. Simmons is Jonah Jameson in this universe, could you retroactively sort of pull the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies into the MCU and just say they take place in a different universe? I feel like the MCU has sort of revolutionized cinema in a way, built this whole idea of a cinematic universe and the way it's expanded. I feel like the only thing that's left for it to do is to start pulling old movies now into its orbit. And you could say, oh yeah, the Sam Raimi movies, actually they were MCU movies as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not the Garfield movies because they weren't as popular, but you never know.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun idea to play with, but I don't think there'll actually be any serious ramifications from that.
It's a tough act to follow, that post-credit scene, but there's also another really fun end credit scene where we cut back to Nick Fury and Maria Hill in the car and suddenly they turn into Skrulls. So it's like, what? Is
you
this
audibly gasped
true?
when we watched this.
Is it true? Is actually Nick Fury being Talos all along? Ben Mendelsohn's character from Captain Marvel. Doesn't quite work out that way though, does it?
No, it's just that basically, post the events of Endgame, Nick Fury's just gone on holiday.
Just wants a break.
Just kicking back in space. And so for the events of this movie, at least though, both Nick Fury and Maria Hill were Skrulls. Were Skrulls.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting with Nick Fury, taking a break in space. Initially, I was like, oh, is this going to be setting up Phase 4? Is it going to be some sort of like, he's building some sort of like Avengers installation in space, so we're going to have Space Avengers? No, he's just on holiday.
No, he's just strolling around trying to find his shoes. Some Skrull, cheeky Skrull, has nicked his shoes and he's trying to find them.
But I do feel like it was maybe like a slightly subtle nod to the fact that Phase 4 is coming, where Nick Fury's like, right, holiday's over, time to get back to work.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, we're moving on, Phase 4 is coming.
Bitch, please, you've been to space.
But even if Nick Fury is in the future MCU movies, we won't know if it's actually him or not.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that little beat as well is that there was a fan theory going around after Avengers Endgame that in the final scene where you see Spider-Man and Ned reunite, in the background there's sort of like a nondescript white man who potentially looks a little bit like Ben Mendelsohn, but no one's quite sure. So everyone's like, oh, maybe he's keeping an eye on him. And maybe this is actually true. Maybe all along Nick Fury's like, hang on, Spider-Man needs someone to just, keep an eye on him, keep him out of trouble, and has just sent him back to Earth after they'd found their new homeworld.
It's MCU. I wouldn't.
stretching.
I wouldn't put it past them to sort of sow that seed that early.
Yeah.
There's a lot of forward planning that goes on in the MCU.
For sure.
You're right, you may not be ready, but this is my responsibility.
Saving the world requires sacrifice.
Sometimes people die.
I just always feel like I'm putting my friends in danger. The world needs the next Iron Man.
That's pretty much it. Is there anything that me and Morgan have missed, or any kind of references that you feel we should have been discussing? Let us know in the comments below. Is the multiverse dead in the MCU? Was that Mysterio reveal as good as we said? Who knows? Let us know. Make sure to keep an eye on Digital Spy for more of our MCU content.